Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life with Laurel and Laurel. Hi, Laurel. Happy New Year. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm so happy that we're here to welcome in the new year together and to invite our listeners into a really important topic to set the tone for a great year.
I can't wait. And it is really exciting
Yeah,
when we
yeah,
mark something new with the new year.
yeah, yeah, totally. And we can do this every day. We can do this every hour. We can do this every minute. We tend to focus mostly on the year, but the more that we can bring it into the moment to moment existence, the more we, I don't know, I think it's about upping our consciousness level to our presence in the moment. And this is one of the techniques to do it is to celebrate. Okay, I've got a whole hour. What am I going to do with it? I've got a whole year. What am I going to do with it? Right? Yeah.
And I think that's true. I mean, I tend to think in quarters, not just the new year, um,
Mm.
and in seasons, which sometimes overlap with quarters. But I, for me, it's one of these things that it a new beginning. And some people have this practice every day. It allows me to let go and release of maybe some things I don't need to keep holding on to. But most people, I think, bring that into the new year of what are we going to do this year, Laurel?
Yeah, yeah. So we know what we're going to do this year, and we're going to bring you some really great podcasts. And we're excited to do that. This month, we're calling it I guess we're calling it Mindset Month, right? Is that
Yes.
Mindset Month? And really digging into, I know we spend a lot of time on nervous system stuff, emotional stuff, um, past trauma and drama and wounding and how to really cultivate a beautiful life. And I feel like mindset is something that we touch on here and there, but it's so potent a topic that I'm so glad we're addressing it this month in a bigger way, and we're really honing in on some of the more intricate ideas and thoughts around that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mindset makes a huge difference in my life.
It does
What
for
about
me
you?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge for me. And so today's topic on Mindset Month is creating an abundance mindset. And I love this topic because oftentimes we think of abundance in terms of finances. And so we want to dispel that right from the beginning. This is not how do I make more money show. It could relate to that ultimately, but we're not going to be focusing on that. So if you came here to learn how to, make a lot of more money, that's not where we're going today.
That's right.
That's right. Well,
It's
abundance is such a beautiful thing. I mean, it can apply to anything, right? That's where we
true.
begin. Yeah.
We do. And money is just one of the things. I mean,
Mhm.
I know so many women I work with are focused on more time, right? A lot of people are focused on more money.
Mhm.
Um, we set our goals based on what we want to acquire and achieve, right? And all of those things are just a small part of an abundance mindset because there's so much more to it than that.
Yes. And I think that when we stay in those boxes with it, we actually limit our ability to create the abundance mindset. We really kind of take what's the possibilities are and turn them into like a really like a one lane road instead of a super lane highway where there's all kinds of roads that we can take and
That's
places where we can pass and slow down and turn off or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
when you are
Mm.
working on an abundant mindset, give our listeners an example of the types of things that an abundance mindset means for you.
Yeah. All right. So I will begin with saying that I came from a place, my family of origin, and then my sensitivity to the what was going on in our household really set me up to be in uh, a, a an anxious and a little bit fear based more scarcity mindset, and we're gonna address the scarcity and negative thinking around that topic in our next podcast, so I'm not going to get into that a lot today, but I feel like I've explored this topic personally really deeply, and I continue to, because it started so early on in my life that uh, the impressions, the conditioning, the fear, it goes deep down into my energy. And so I'm always like, I feel like I'm always traveling around and thinking about, where am I still afraid? Where am I still limiting myself in the way that I'm thinking about what's possible, or what I want, whether I want it really or not, right? But where am I just setting limitations, and so not even getting to the truth of what I might really want? So I think that, for me, it's been a long journey, and I would say that what I've learned is, first and foremost, is not to think about abundance in terms of money, think about it in terms of uh, the riches of your life, whether that's family, whether that's a beautiful meal on the table, whether it's a beautiful table set, whether it's flowers in the garden or flowers on my counter, or uh, a car that's running and it's got a full gas tank. Like, just the noticing of the everyday that's already there that I can appreciate. I think that's been my biggest journey in turning around my mindset, that was attached to fear and scarcity.
Yeah, I think that's so important.
Mhm.
I mean, at least I did grow up, hearing about what we didn't have when
Mhm.
we had plenty, I can assure you. Um, but our brain tends to hold that. People talk about the glass half full or glass half empty, right? Um, we tend to hold on to a focus, or which creates a belief, because a belief is simply a thought you think time and time again.
Mhm.
But we hold on to those thoughts about what we don't have. And that in itself gets in the way of an abundance mindset for me, right?
Yeah.
If I'm focusing on what am I working on, what am I striving for, I do miss out on all of the richness, and I love that word, that is in
Mhm.
my life currently. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a battle, um, or a dance, maybe is a better
Mhm.
word for it.
Mhm. Yep.
How do you appreciate and have gratitude for everything in your life to develop the abundance mindset, yet still know that there's more possibilities out there for you, right? And I love the connection between abundance and belief in possibilities, because there are endless possibilities in this universe. And
Mm.
what better place to to bring that into your life than an
Yeah.
abundance mindset?
That's so beautiful. I'm so glad you went down the path of starting to talk about thoughts and beliefs, because I do feel like this is an integral part of looking at mindset work and beginning to develop your practices in mindset work. So, knowing that uh, we think thoughts, we tend to repeat thinking thoughts when the thoughts are reinforced enough, and we have enough evidence, right? It becomes a belief. And then the belief gets begins to build the subconscious mind, which is the default position for us of where our our behavior generally comes from, because our general behavior generally comes from subconscious, whatever's in our subconscious, not because we just can't handle all the conscious thoughts and decisions that have to go on from a moment. I can't decide if I have to put my left foot forward or my right foot forward first. If I have to think about that, it's too much, right? So yeah,
Yes.
so yeah, yeah, and this is true of, when I get to the store, right? If I'm so used to not thinking about what I'm buying, and I just go ahead and buy it, and I'm running up a lot of debt. Like, this is how the habits start getting created, and whether we're conscious with them or not is how we begin to really reel it back and start to take a look at it. So beginning to, look at, what are your behaviors around, your what you have around you already, and what you strive for, what you think you want more of, and what you're afraid you can't have. Some of those, like, those are some of the buckets that we can start to work in. right, Laura?
Yes,
What other
yes.
buckets come up for you when I want to just mention some of those? What other, um, for our listeners as they begin to do their journey into how is my mind creating my reality?
Well, I think you're onto something. It does start with, you know, being aware of and questioning, right?
Yeah.
And so, maybe it's the practice of walking into a room. You've been in that room a million times, but
Mm,
pausing for a moment and taking notice of what it feels like to walk into that room each
mm,
time, like the new time,
yeah.
this time. Um, and and the what I love about the conversation about beliefs and thoughts, and our environment does create our habits and our behaviors. And I mean, there's a lot of
Mhm,
subconscious thoughts tied to living on autopilot, right? I mean,
mhm,
that
mhm, yep,
so it just reinforces things. And
mm,
so, throwing a monkey wrench in that when we can, because
mhm,
our brain really is a data processor, right? And takes every new piece of data that we perceive as new.
mhm,
Otherwise, it's just grabbing on something old data, saying, "Oh, you don't you don't need to do anything new. We know
mhm.
what to do now because of the old data." So really tricking
Right.
yourself into thinking about that.
That's
And
great.
one of the things that came up for me when you were talking about, like at the grocery store,
Mm,
often often I am overwhelmed in big
mm,
stores. It happened. It's probably started happening 20 years ago in the big box stores. A Home Depot or a Lowe's with high ceilings and too much stuff.
mhm,
Sometimes it even happens in the grocery store with too many choices and the
mm.
overwhelm of too much.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so one of the ways I tend to balance that now is saying, reminding myself I am so fortunate to live in a world where there is too much for me to choose from, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so it could be that it's a fear of having too much somewhere in there.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's so, interesting. When we begin to look at mindset, right? What our fears really are, right? Yeah. So fear of too much can be as strong as fear of too little. It can, and so that can keep us from the possibility thinking and getting out of the box of the loop of where we, normally travel and what we normally do. So
Yeah.
great, great for our listeners to tap into that as well, beginning to look at is that going on anywhere? Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked about beliefs and thoughts. And whenever I'm talking about thoughts, that thoughts often create our emotions or our feelings, right? So
Hmm.
fear comes up a lot when we're
Hmm.
talking about abundance. But what other emotions might be kind of entwined in there, right? Is it, can you figure out, why am I afraid of that? Or is my thought because of guilt, perhaps?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
Is there
Yeah.
an underlying guilt? Is there an underlying judgment, right,
Hmm.
of other people that have too much, and perhaps I don't want to be that way. So the questioning, recognizing you have a thought and you have a feeling, and trying
Hmm.
to just kind of peel back the layers of that feeling.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I want to give an example of the thought and the feeling, and how sometimes we we don't have thinking connected to a feeling that is tied into the old belief. And I'll use myself as an example. So this past year, my word in last year was unbound, and so I had these times during the year when I became ultra aware of feelings in a moment when something happened, when I was engaging with somebody, and it didn't seem in alignment with who I am and how I think and how I show up now. And the couple times that it happened, it was an opportunity to stay with the feeling, travel inwards, kind of the way I do that to stay with it, to hold on to it, is kind of go inward and go, where is that feeling in my body exactly? Right. And one of them was so deep down, and I knew it was way down in the base of my spine, like down in first chakra. And it was fear. And it was coming up around my children and their livelihoods. And I didn't realize that I was having that experience. Like, I wasn't thinking those thoughts like, oh, I'm worried about my kids. So they all seem fine. I'm not, you know, but when I noticed that feeling for that flash of a moment, I traveled in. I was like, oh, huh. I'm still on a journey to discover exactly what that was all about. But my guess is that it's tied to my early stuff, right? Of fear of not being enough, not having enough around to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. Because I was a little kid kind of looking around and tuning into all of that in my family at an earlier age than I probably should have been, really, you know? And so it really got deep into my beingness of, is everybody going to be okay? Are they going to have enough? Right? Yeah.
Yes. And
Hmm.
it's so good. You are really in tune with your physical body and where you have the sensations or feelings, right? I mean, oftentimes,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I am learning that practice of a deeper embodied self awareness.
Mm.
Um, but sometimes all we have is the emotion, which
Yeah.
often an emotion, you know, a thought and emotion are so close that sometimes they're one and the same, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but the physical feeling and the sensation of where is it showing up in your body, right?
Yeah.
And then asking, what is what can I learn from that, right?
Hmm.
Before you let just the cognitive side of thoughts and emotions rule the day, right?
Right.
I
Yes.
love
Yes.
your practice.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to say that, for our listeners, part of the mindset work can also be a discovery of your own dance between your thoughts and your feelings, and how you become aware of your thought patterns and the way that your feelings and your thoughts do a dance, and then create the new beliefs or reinforce old beliefs or whatever is going on there. So um, I think that's really important because we all are wired a little bit differently. Like when you said, Laurel, I really like, you appreciate the way that I have a really strong embodied self awareness, and I think part of it is because I'm a very tactile person. And then I really, early on in my healing process, I also got very in touch with my energy and my physical body through Tai Chi and meditation. And so, take those two things together, and that's a really strong information center for me, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
We should do an episode on,
yeah.
we have some talk coming up this spring, I think, about energy, but all
Yeah.
of the tools and tricks, all of the resources available to us to help us become more self-aware, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I often think about I process things through words, right? And so
Mhm.
it really, I think the more I can learn not to let my cognitive and the words I use to process um, give me all of the information, I am
Mhm.
really intentionally looking to slow that down and develop some new information because our body is filled with data, with resources, with clues and messages, right?
Yes, yes. And so as we go into that connection, right, going down deeper into the body, I think it's one of the more useful tools of helping us develop and cultivate an abundance mindset, because I think the heart and the body recognizes, if you, like you said, when you walk into a room and you look around and you see all your things, right? If you were to really hold each one and say, do I really love this? Do I really want this? you're not going to be thinking about it. Your body's going to be speaking to you. Your heart's going to be speaking to you, and that helps us also cultivate an awareness of what we really appreciate around us, what we enjoy around us, and that can help us begin to change our thinking maybe about how we gather, because we're in such a consumer society.
Mm,
We're so used to just consuming and buying and thinking and getting new stuff or whatever, and so we don't question that.
it is so true. So true. So what other areas do you find that your abundance mindset and this practice opens up for you?
Mm. I would say that it helps me feel less attached to the material world, less focus on money and materialism, right? Because my abundance mindset, if I expand it out to what I really love and feel like is rich in my life, then it isn't so much about stuff anymore and getting more stuff or making more money. It's really about looking around me and thinking about what's important, what are the values and the priorities in my life, and then how is that feeling to me? Is it feeling abundant? Is it feeling full and rich and of quality? Is it beautiful? Right? Like those are the words that I might be using, right? And
Yes.
oftentimes, I think because of the culture we live in, and we've been so focused economically and with consumerism and this adopting this really strong focus on economy, right? We don't practice really thinking, paying attention to, and appreciating family, love, your attachment to the earth, these other things that give us a sense of abundance. And yet we're just overlooking them in a day-to-day kind of way. Yeah.
Yes. And when I think often about two things. Um, the abundance of experiences, right? And so
Mhm.
sometime, if I'm focusing on, you use the word richness or rich,
Yeah.
having a rich life. It's the experiences and an abundance within an experience or of experiences, right?
Yeah,
That
that's
really
right.
make my life full. And so
Mhm.
sometimes an abundant experience is buying a new piece of furniture, right?
Mhm.
Or shopping for a new outfit. And sometimes it's filling my dinner table, my dining table with friends and family, right? So it shows up
Mhm.
for me. There's there's endless possibilities if I am seeking abundance of experience.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great. That's great.
and
Yeah.
then and then the other thing that was coming up for me is, my belief that sometimes when we look at, or I'm going to say myself, who's a very cognitive, analytical brain, I
Mhm.
fight that side of it. Um, you know, I see the here and now, and I use that as facts and
Mhm.
proof, and that limits my abundance because the here and now is only a snapshot in time,
Right,
right?
right.
It's more physical, tangible. So I really hold tight to my belief in the abundance of the universe or in
Mhm.
the universe or in the world, on the planet, because knowing that abundance surrounds me, it strengthens my belief that abundance is mine to be had as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and I have
Uh,
one last thought on
yeah,
that though.
yeah,
And
go,
that
go.
and
Yeah.
I think this is a practice that has been very helpful for me, and it might be for our listeners, of overcoming the thoughts of less than in themselves, right? I am not enough. I am not good enough. I am not smart enough. I am not rich enough. I am not tall enough. That one's mine. Um, but believing in that I am surrounded by abundance and it is mine, it is mine because it's around me.
Mhm.
It has helped with the mindset of I am enough.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think what's helped me with that a lot, Laurel, has been the practice of every time I think I want something, challenging that with why do I want it? Do I really want it? Do I want to have the responsibility for that? Do I really want to take care of that? Um, rather, and also saying, and do I want it right now? Right? Because even if there's something that you want that you feel like you can't monetarily afford right now or can't make happen right now, is it's okay to say, I think I want it, but I'm not going to make that a priority right now. Now's not the time for that for me. And be good with that, because I think again it's tapping into the feeling of I don't have to have anything really to make myself happy, to have a good life, to enjoy what I already have. I can just be here now in this moment and be pleased with what I have. And that goes back to probably, when we have talked about this topic in the past, is developing a gratitude mindset.
Yes. I mean, gratitude and abundance mindset are so,
Key.
so right.
Yes.
And can
Yes.
you have one without the other?
I don't know if you can now. I would
Hmm.
that's a great exploration for all of us this year, right? To really notice if you don't have a gratitude practice, beginning to develop a one and see how it begins to shift your sense of appreciation for what you already have, a sense of, oh, I already have so much. I already feel like I'm living in an abundant kind of way, right? How it begins to change your thinking. And I think
Yes.
creating abundance mindset isn't just about, again, saying the affirmations. That's so that's so minimal, and it also doesn't even work. And if you have other beliefs that don't agree at all with the affirmations that you're trying to stick in there, you're just I don't know, blowing smoke in the wind. I don't know I mean, I don't know what the right terminology is. It's probably not appropriate for our podcast, but it's really just a waste of time. And so, beginning to recognize, abundance mindset and our thinking is about the interaction of words and thoughts and deeds, and being able to get that all in alignment with a sense of fullness, richness, possibility, directing our thinking, beginning to notice. I think that was the other key for me, Laurel. If we circle back to where you asked me at the very beginning, like how did it work for me, or how do I really work with that? Is I spent a lot of time in my meditation beginning to notice what was the automatic thinking that was going around in my brain. And
Yes.
instead of just saying, I don't want to be thinking because I'm in meditation, I'm like, oh, look at what I'm thinking about. Oh, look at what I'm thinking about. Hmm. I wonder what that's about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And noticing, yeah, right? There's got to be beliefs in
Yes.
there that tie back to those thoughts. So let's figure that out.
Yes. Yeah. Our
Hmm.
our brain does a really good job deciphering what is a lie and what is the truth. And so
Mm.
the affirmations I this is the one I use. I love this example because it's so funny. I can have an affirmation that that I am tall, I don't know, and tall and thin all day long. I could say that every day. It is not the truth, and my brain knows that, right? So
Yeah,
no
yeah,
matter how much I say an affirmation that isn't the truth,
yeah,
it's not going to change me.
yeah,
So I think
yeah.
that's really important, and the awareness, right? That that just noticing, which sometimes is really hard,
Mhm.
especially if I was in this place at some time in my life, where feeling my feelings wasn't comfortable at all, right?
Mhm.
And and really acknowledging my thoughts that were causing those feelings was not an activity I wanted to do. And so, I think that it's important to say, let's, let's develop this new practice, this new mindset in little tiny, in tiny steps.
Yes.
When we were talking about the connection, can you have a gratitude practice, or can you have an abundance mindset without gratitude, or vice versa? If our listeners, if you don't have an abundance mindset yet, or it's something that you're developing, but you have a gratitude practice, how can you use your gratitude practice to strengthen or start to build an abundance mindset?
That's a great journaling question
Yes.
for everybody. That's a great journaling question for everybody because if you have, and especially if you've had a gratitude practice for a while and you feel like you haven't been able to create an abundance mindset, or those two things still feel very far away, you might want to examine your gratitude practice. I know I have a 12-week meditation course that I developed on my. It's a digital product on my website, and the very first module, the very first pillar that we're trying to create within is gratitude. And when I take people through the guided meditation, it's about feeling gratitude. It's
Hmm.
not about saying the words. It's about changing the way you feel inside so that you feel the joy of something, the pleasure, the abundance, the bliss, the happiness, the satisfaction, the fullness. Like these are all the words that are attached to how you feel when you're actually experiencing gratitude. If you just
Yes.
say, I'm so happy I have a great house, and you feel nothing, that's not really a gratitude practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think gratitude has become a very, it's one of the things that we're told we should do every day, right? We should
Mhm.
list 3 gratitudes every day. But
Mhm.
that, as you were saying, without
Yeah.
feeling the gratitude, the list
Right.
really doesn't strengthen your practice.
Yes. Yes. So
Mm.
for our listeners, you bring up a really good point, Laurel. And if you feel like it's kind of scary to start looking at your thinking in totality, beginning to look at all the feelings that are going on in your being, right? You might want to just develop a practice where you're recognizing some for 10 or 15 minutes a day, right? That's your meditation. It's just reviewing, how did I feel during the day yesterday or your today? And what were the thoughts that I thought a lot about? Or did I have negative thinking? Beginning to allow yourself to have some bits and pieces of letting that information come in and come into your awareness. I know we
Yes.
did a podcast the end of in this past fall about taking responsibility for your life, and for me, this is the minutia that creates the quality of life that you want, is being able to take responsibility, like I'm feeling this thing, I'm thinking this thing, this is actually creating a certain mindset and vibration in me, and this is and now this is what I'm experiencing around me because of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is so, when we think about, I was talking about experiences, much of my experience I create. And I really believe that, whether it's not a good experience or it's a great experience, I have some responsibility in the creation of that
Yeah.
through my thoughts and my feelings and my vibration and my mindset and my behavior.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all of those things contribute to the life I have. And
Absolutely.
so
Mhm.
I think it's just, it's this is why we do the inner work.
Absolutely, and this is how we get to that beautiful place. Is really conditioning and knowing. So I want to tell our listeners this is so important, right? Your mind is like Laura said. At some point, your brain is just a machine, right? It goes, oh look, there's that thought. Okay, that's fine. And it might throw out the truth if it actually gets to like your heart actually getting involved, right? And going, oh wait a minute, that doesn't feel right. But otherwise, these are just thoughts and thoughts and thoughts, and you can redirect your thinking. if you have bad habits in thinking and it's really, it's making you unhappy, you're focused in negative ways, you're focused in being afraid, or you're focused in scarcity, whatever it is, we're going to come back and talk about that in our next podcast. So hang in there. We'll be back with some tips and ideas around that. But to begin the process of allowing yourself to say, I can change this. I can change the way I think. Because oftentimes we feel like we're like a victim of our own thoughts and our own mind, like this negativity, this bad thinking, this whatever. I can't change it. You can, but you really have to dedicate yourself, and begin to understand the dance of the emotions and thoughts and all that kind of stuff. And that's where we're really going to be focusing this year. So come on the journey with us, and
Yes.
yeah,
And
right.
that's what we do. I mean, that's what we do as coaches. We
Yes.
work a lot on thoughts and feelings and
Yeah.
the physical, you know, result, right? All of those things is what we work on.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's so good when I think about, I love neuroscience and I love the brain. And there's so much science now that really does, show us that we can control our brain
Yeah.
and not let our brain control us. Right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it is a data processor, and it
Yeah.
receives data from external and internal sources. So just being aware that your brain, your thoughts, it's a system that is supposed to be of service to you and your whole being. You are not the servant to your brain, right?
Yes.
I tell
Bingo.
I tell my clients all the time, you've got to hijack your brain. You have to stop your brain in its
Yes.
tracks at times,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Of course, there are other times you know, that the brain works closely with the heart and the intuition, and magic happens if you can get all three of them working at the same time.
Right, right. Alignment, right? So
Yes.
that's always where my strong focus always in my own life and working with my clients is aligning, right? Word, thought, and deed. And you're right, the intuition, the heart, all of that coming into a space where you are focused and this is where I want to head. This is what I want my life to be about. This is what I'm cultivating. I'm going to have my mind, my emotions, my heart, my intuition, my gut, like all of it working in service to
Mhm.
that, and I'm the director of the show, right? Yeah.
I love that. And I think it's perfect for, this is what I'm creating. I am creating an abundant life, right?
Yeah.
And with my head, my heart, and my intuition all working in alignment for me, with me, to create an abundant life. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so Laurel, you gave a great journaling exercise to our listeners, and I want to wrap up with one that feels like ooh, it was coming and going. It was like, ooh, this is a good one. Yes, it is. How let's say that the topic of our show today was creating a abundance mindset. Let's say the very beginning of that is experiencing abundance right now.
Mm.
So how can you start to notice where you're feeling abundant or where your life has some abundance? And here's the word that came up too that I never mentioned in the show. I know we have to wrap up, but creativity, right? The abundance of you are creative, being in the world. You create things in moment to moment. What are you creating right now, right? What is your creation experience? What is your joy of whatever you're making? Is it making your bed a beautiful way? Is it making art? Is it um, crafting a journal? Is it making a great math equation for your kids at school? I don't know, but that, like, noticing that you are a creative force, and you can experience abundance through that creative way, right? So starting to take inventory, I guess that's where I want to leave our listeners is, okay, let's begin with inventory again, right? And notice, yeah, can you experience abundance today? How would you experience it? Where is it in your life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
Mm.
exactly what I was thinking, that, can you strengthen your abundance mindset just by journaling, creating a list, noticing all of the abundance that you currently have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And knowing, tying back to the creativity, knowing that you're a creative being and you created that thus far,
Mhm.
and you have the opportunity to create even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm. Well,
Mm. Off to a good start.
yes. Really, really
Yeah.
great conversation again today. I
Yes,
always
indeed.
appreciate it.
Me too. Me too. And I look forward to next time. So tune in with us next time. We're going to talk about working with your scarcity, any negative thinking, because we feel like that just ties right into this so much. But it's also a big topic to dive into. So we'll see you next time for
Yes.
that, right, Laurel?
Okay. Yes. Have a great
All
day.
right. See you next
Bye.
time. Bye, everybody.